Hello everyone, welcome to what I jokingly call the Idiot's Guide to Theology. This is a prerequisite for medieval philosophy because if you know anything about the Middle Ages, you'll know that they are predominantly Christian, and consequently the philosophy that came out of that time period is predominantly Christian. So it's essential that we have at least a working knowledge of Christian theology before proceeding. And with that in mind, I would like to say this. Everyone is a theologian. Everyone. I say this because the word theologian is derived from two Greek words, theos, meaning God, and logos, meaning to give a reasoned account of. Put together, the words would mean to give a reasoned account of God. And really, this is applicable to everyone, whether you're a theist, an atheist, an agnostic, or a deist. It doesn't matter, because all of these positions have some reasoned account or answer as to the question of God. A theist will say, yes, God exists, and here's why I think that. An atheist will say, no, God does not exist, and here's why I think that. The agnostic will say, I'm not sure if God exists because there's not enough proof. The deist will say, well, yes, God exists, but he's very far away, here's why I think that. The point being that they all have a reasoned account of God. Even atheists are theologians, although they probably want to coin the term as to be an atheologian. I don't know, I'm not going to put words in their mouths, but that's just what comes to mind. Anyway, I bring this up because it gives us all something in common, a common starting point at which to begin diving into Christian theology. Bluntly put, Christian philosophy is the answer to the questions raised by philosophy, questions like origin, identity, ethics, the question of life and death, what we can hope for in life. All these questions are fundamentally philosophical, and theology means to give us the answers to these questions. Answers that we might not accept, but answers nonetheless. So for the time being, it is good to be a theologian, because that means we can at least toy with some possible answers. The main selling point of Christianity was, and still is, that while we were searching for the unknown and the unknown and the divine was searching for us. While the philosophers were debating the existence of God and what his nature would be, and really just struggling to find some answers in this ambiguous state that we call life, the answer was on its way to us. And it came, allegedly, in the form of Jesus Christ, the incarnation of God himself. Now, if that sounds a little bit too religious for you, let me put it in different terms. Some people believe in extraterrestrial life. They really hope that we can find intelligent life somewhere in the stars, a sign that will show that we're not alone in the universe. Some people hope that intelligent life will show up one day on our doorstep, here on Earth, and they will lift us up from the state we find ourselves in as human beings, that they will somehow cure all the ailments that ail us, such as bad moral choices, our violent nature, war, disease. We hope for solutions to all these problems from some higher being, in this case, technologically advanced aliens. So, with the help of our friend Kierkegaard, let's take the analogy a little bit further. Let's suppose that intelligent life does exist. Let's suppose that there is a race of benevolent, incredibly advanced aliens, far more advanced than anything that we can imagine. And let's suppose that they come to Earth with the intent of sharing their goodwill and love, and that they want us to have goodwill and love towards them. Now, there are three ways that they can go about revealing themselves and sharing this goodwill and love. They can beam all the human beings up into their starships, raise us to their level, and show us all the wonderful things that they have to offer. And while that may be done with perfect goodwill on their part, it's counterproductive to their goal, because we would be raised up to their level instantly, really without any preparation, and we would be shocked and awed into having goodwill and love for them. It wouldn't really be something genuine. We wouldn't actually come to love and understand them on our own terms. We would really just be shocked into it. The second way that it could work is the opposite. If instead the aliens came down to our level on Earth, but maintained their splendor, came down in their ships, in their advanced technological suits or whatever, and it would really be the same effect. It would not be true, genuine love or goodwill on our part if we were sort of shocked into it. And at the same time, there would be those of us who would be afraid of them, because we're always afraid of what we don't understand. So this also is counterproductive to their goal of getting us to reciprocate their love and goodwill. But there is a third option, and this turns out to be the best. The aliens come down to Earth invisibly. Not necessarily literally invisibly, but incognito, living as one of us, taking on the appearance of human beings, living life as we human beings live it, and experiencing all of our pains, our sorrows, our joys, everything that makes life what it is for us. They experience. And on that equal playing field, they come to us, not as extraordinary aliens from beyond, but rather as people. They come to us as people, and they try to share with us their goodwill and love, and they hope that we, as people, will reciprocate that love and goodwill. They respect us enough to make up our own minds about how we feel about them. They don't want to shock us into loving or having goodwill towards them. They respect us. They respect our free will. And that's, in a nutshell, pretty much what Christology is. That's basically what Christian theology would have you believe about the incarnation of Jesus Christ. God himself, an infinitely transcendent, adimensional or nth-dimensional being, coming down, compacting himself into three-dimensional form, living as one of us, suffering all the pains that we suffer, and respecting us people enough not to come down as some kind of infinitely bright star that would blind us all, but rather coming to us as a person, one person to another. Now, this is by no means a perfect analogy, but it does serve our purpose in setting the stage for us as theologians. What we should take away from all of this is that maybe we have cause to be optimistic about life. Maybe we can find the answers. Maybe we can understand things fully. Maybe life doesn't have to be so miserable for us all the time. Maybe there is hope. Now, logical and reasoned people that we modern folk are, we don't like to take things on faith without a bit of evidence or logic to back it up. And you know what? That's perfectly understandable. I am much the same way. I don't like taking things on faith without a bit of evidence or logic to back it up. But that's the interesting thing about theology, or systematic theology as we will come to understand it. It's not so much about presenting us with religious baggage, because ultimately it really has nothing to do with all that. But it has everything to do with presenting us with an acknowledgement of the hope that we have, that life can be lived with a grain of optimism and be perfectly justified. The hope that maybe there really is more to all this than just a brief life full of suffering and then death. Maybe there is more to it than all that. And that's why I contrast it with philosophy. Philosophy asks the question, hard questions, perfectly logical questions that need to be addressed, important questions. But don't you think it's interesting that over thousands of years of inquiry, by some of the best and brightest that humankind has to offer throughout the ages, no real consensus has been reached. Philosophy remains as murky an affair as it was thousands of years ago. Despite all the progress that we've made, we still have no hard answers for life's hard questions. And that is what makes theology so interesting. Not necessarily that it's better or more logical or more reasoned than philosophy, but because it presents us with some pretty interesting answers. Answers made in the affirmative. Answers that can give us hope and reason to live through life optimistically. That is the basic assumption that we should consider going into theology. Now, none of this is to say that we should all be so optimistic as to become naive, because logic and reason must always be integral parts of our decision-making and our theological understanding. And that is why theology is often described as a dialogue, in much the same way as philosophy is, about asking a question, receiving an answer, and then working out what implications follow from that answer. But theology builds all of its reasoning upon a very simple axiom, an axiom that philosophy, for all of its efforts, has been as of yet unable to provide us with. And that axiom, that basic assumption, is that we can go through life with hope in our hearts. Now, we don't have to be naive about it. We can do it with logic. We can do it with reason. But we don't do it because we derive the answer ourselves. We do it because the answer has been given. And now we get to sink our teeth into it. Because let's face it, that's what we human beings like to do, right? We like to learn things, we like to dissect things, we like to figure things out. We're very curious. Theology is the curiosity of man unleashed upon this answer to life, within reason, of course. And so, to summarize, a helpful perspective to have going into theology is to think of philosophy as the question and theology as the answer. And this answer is often referred to as revelation in theological circles, but we're going to get into that later if we have time. For the time being, this video is just to warm you up to the basic assumptions that theology makes. And again, I'm not trying to tell you what to believe, I'm just sharing a perspective that is very helpful for understanding what theology is all about. And so, with that being said, let's adjourn for the day, return again at some other time, and we'll go over some actual factual theology, some nuts and bolts theology, as opposed to just, this mamby-pamby introductory stuff. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I hope that this has changed your opinion about theology in some way. And with that said, I'll see you guys later. Bye. This is The Idiot signing out.